if you are very easily crushed by failures, then you're not going to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship actually teaches you to be nimble and be adaptive, be fast, predict the changes and adapt according to that.
For today's episode on Success Documented, we have the serial entrepreneur, artificial intelligence and management expert, Mr. Prerit Gautam. Working on AI far before its boom, he is a seasoned AI, machine learning, and entrepreneurial expert, having worked across various multinationals, including Cognizant and Accenture, as well as multiple startups, including Clik.ai. Welcome to the show. How are you
Thank you for
today?
having me. I'm wonderful.
Okay, so starting at the beginning, what do you learn from your first startup, Coolcrafters? I believe that was your first. And what were the struggles involved in, starting it up?
Coolcrafters happened actually during the dot-com um, boom days. It was back in '99 when I graduated. I was interning with a call center. So I was working operations in the day, and then at the night I was trying to create a CRM solution myself. And that was the time when one of the investors actually invited me for with two mandates. One was to set up a IT-enabled services firm, one of the voice campaigns, and one of his other investments, the CEO was moving out, so he wanted me to take over that IT services unit as well.
Mm.
So that was the starting point. I moved to Hyderabad. We started putting up the campaign together. While the call center business was scaling up linearly, you know, we found more opportunities in the software space over there. So scale the business. We were doing about 120K a year or something, which was
Mhm.
a decent enough size
Yeah.
at that point of time.
Mhm.
Web enablement, content, a lot of testing services, which we were doing. So that was my first taste to entrepreneurship at that point of time.
Mhm. And it was during the tech bubble. So I believe tech bubble ended about 2002, and you closed this one at about 2003. Did it have anything to
That
do
is
with it?
correct. Not really. So it
Uh-huh.
got merged with the investors, one of the other company, and they wanted to leverage the client base that we have built to cross sell and upsell their products as well. So it just got merged, and I got an exit out of that.
Hmm. Okay. Sounds good. And post your first startup, I believe you transitioned into the corporate where
Yes, yes.
you started working in Cognizant, Accenture, and multiple other firms. First of all, why was the transition so swift, like directly from a startup to the corporate? And what was it like? What did you learn from it? And how do you implement what you learned in the corporate in your
Yeah,
post corporate startups?
yeah. Well, Shivan, honestly, I was 24 at that time,
Mm.
right? And then having done the first startup, I realized a couple of things, right? I mean, one of the things is that my strength is a lot on account management, more on the uh, client side of it. And with that, I wanted to take a front seat to operations at scale, how the frameworks work with multinationals, how they acquire their customers, um, how do they manage large projects and programs. And that is when I decided to join Accenture. And thankfully, the role that I was chosen for was an account management role within within the financial services uh, vertical in the US. So, so I was shipped off to US. I started off with a couple of accounts in Midwest, including um, TransUnion, Bank of America, a bunch of capital markets customers. So that was my entry into the big league in terms of managing large accounts, um, kind of getting to know how the whole outsourcing business at scale happens. And once you get taste of it, you just want to grow from there. So I moved. I was with Accenture for a couple of years. Then I moved to Cognizant. I moved to Genpact, and that's how I could grow, my skills, and at the same time, I could hopefully add a lot of value to the organizations that I was a part of.
And I think now more than ever, we're seeing a rise of entrepreneurs who, without any experience in actual jobs or corporate, are starting their own startups. And they're wondering why it isn't working, why they don't have the skills, adequate skills to run an organization. Do you think it's important for someone to be a part of an organization before leading it? And why, if so?
I There's no cookie cutter approach as such. I've seen entrepreneurs who have been successful at a very young age with very less experience, and I've also seen people very late in life starting with their journey and yet being very successful. It's about entrepreneurship is in my opinion, like riding a lion, right? I mean, people outside would say, "Wow, you're brave," but that at the all time, what you're doing is you're riding a lion and hoping that the lion won't eat you. So, having said that, um, it's a learning. No one comes prepared, even after years of experience, to face the challenges that you would do as an entrepreneur. You may be very good at product management, you may be very good at customer, side of it, but the challenges that you face in terms of closing funding, for example, or um, the changing aspects of digital marketing, Gen AI, for example,
Mm-hmm.
those are disruptive, right? You're not prepared to deal with any of them, and you have to juggle everything and yet be successful. So, how quickly you can adapt, that's the key thing for any entrepreneur, whether young or experienced.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So, being adaptive in different environments is, you would say, the number one predictor of how successful an entrepreneur can be.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, pivot changes. You may be starting with a certain idea, you face a roadblock, and then you have to pivot again. If you are very easily crushed by failures, then you're not going to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur fails 1,000 times and get up, dust off their clothes, and then start again.
And the beautiful thing is you only need that one success.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, talking about entrepreneurship, your current company, Click.ai, could you tell us a bit about the business model and why you chose to settle on this specific business model,
Yeah,
being a co-founder?
absolutely. Um, if you look into So first of all, let me tell you about Clik.ai, right? We are into the commercial real estate technology domain. When you look at CRE or commercial real estate as a domain, it's a very big market. It's about $20 trillion
Mm,
in the US alone, about 1.5 trillion in Canada. Almost about $900 billion worth of transactions comes, every year is done annually. Now, um, even after so much of high value transaction that happens, um, this industry has not been touched by technology by far. Processes are still manual. The people who are involved in CRE, they rely on relationships quite a bit than providing technology value to their customers. Because you have to understand one thing, right? I mean, when you're talking about a 900 billion annual, transaction value, each transaction in commercial real estate is, I'd say, about 15 to 25 million. So that makes total transactions about uh, 35,000,
mm,
transactions.
yeah.
Now, with that less a transaction,
Mm,
you focus more on the top line, not much on the bottom line. So automation, bringing process improvements, that's secondary. If you can help generating leads, or if you can um, somehow add to the top line, that always is taken forward as an idea than any of the bottom line improvements. So CRE has not seen the kind of
Development.
influx of technological advancements as any other industry per se. When I looked at some of the CRE processes, and by the way, um, my in-depth understanding of CRE actually came from my brother, who's also my co-founder. He
Oh.
was running a BPO
Mm.
firm at the moment, helping a lot of CRE customers. And then whenever I used to talk to him, he used to complain that the process is so manual. It takes almost about 6 to 8 weeks to close one transaction. um, all the If you look at any of the the document process which are involved, whether that is financial records, it is appraisals, it is any insurance document, everything is manual. Everything is The data is actually extracted out of them manually, modeling done manually, to the transaction closed manually. So I saw that as a huge opportunity. I thought that why are people spending so much of time on manually extracting data when they should be doing more customer front ending? And that is when we decided to essentially try finding solutions first internally for ourselves, for our analysts who were working in the BPO, and then trying to monetize that with the customers where we already had our foot in the door. Thankfully, that was successful. We were able to build, first of all, automation around the financial documents, rent rolls, more of tabular data, and then later on come up with other products where using NLP, where we could extract data from documents like appraisals, insurance forms, leases, all those kind of things. And then that was something which was readily accepted by asset managers,
Mm.
brokers, and other ICPs within our domain,
Mhm.
and then help us grow.
Hmm. That's interesting. So basically developing a very old market, hundreds of years old, of real estate, implementing new concepts of AI and technology into it. So, uh, moving on from that, what would you tell people about running a software as a service business? Nowadays, it's like glamorous, glorified everywhere on the internet. Start a software as a service business. It's easy, and you'll make a bunch of money of course. What do you say about that? And if someone genuinely has a passion in terms of starting a software as a service business, first of all, how should they come up with a business that might make sense and be useful? And what's the key to longevity and success in such a business?
So, two parts of the question. The first one is in terms of what makes a successful SaaS business. Um, I would say three things, right? One is um, customer retention and satisfaction. Um, how likely would it be that the customers um, stick to the product or the service that you're offering? If it's a repeat business, if your customer retention is high, you're doing the right thing. Second part to that would be in terms of what new functionalities or what new value you're adding to the customer. A classic example is, let's say, for example, these video content providers like Netflix
Mhm.
or Prime or Hotstar, all of those, right? If they do not refresh their content, people would leave. So and the same thing applies to any of these SaaS businesses that exist today. You have to constantly evolve. You have to constantly provide better value in order for you to remain relevant. And the very last thing I would say is in terms of um, the the model has to make sense. Um, People call themselves software as a service, a SaaS business, but at the same time, as they keep their juggling between their pricing, they keep juggling between who are their real customer, who they are delivering the value, and that doesn't work. Your value that you're delivering has to be very consistent and it has to make sense. So those are the three things that I would say about the SaaS business that makes that very successful.
And what do you think about the make money quick side of things? Of course. Um,
Um, if you can disrupt, for example, WhatsApp,
mhm,
if you take an example, right? I mean, it wasn't making any money, but in terms of the growth traction, it was just disruptive. If you can create something which is disrupting the way that you perceive or work today, um, money will follow.
mm, that's good advice. So, following up on AI, and software as a service, what have been the most significant advancements in AI in the past, say, 5-ish years in your eyes? And how has it been, living through those advancements as an AI company? How have you integrated those new aspects into your business?
I would divide the era of AI into two:
Hmm.
before the Gen AI
Hmm.
or the LLMs and all of that, and after
That
that,
would be
right? So
yours.
AI has always been,
Hmm.
there since I'd say late, like early 2000s and 2011, 2012, and all that. It has always been there, but it was different in the sense that the neural networks were simpler. Uh, think of it as the fact that it was very rule based. You know, so there was a imagine there's a robot uh, which, if you give them a math book and ask it to find all the formulas, it will be able to do it. But if you ask the same robot to look at the history book and find all the important dates, it will be confused because it is not trained that way. Um, but imagine a smart assistant which, uh, regardless of the book, it could still figure out, what data needs to be done, and that's because it is now have context. It is more generalized. It doesn't need training in a specific format. So that's what the Gen AI has brought to the table with with the transformer architecture.
Mm.
Um, Now it has context,
Yeah.
and that has been the change. So the um, implementation of AI has always been there. There were machine learning libraries which is making things easier, but the models were different. Like, for example, bag of words was a model that we used um, with our systems earlier. It was very rule based. It's like, um, if I give you a shopping receipt, I would have to train it to say, look at the number against total to figure out, the price. And at the same time, if I give it, let's say, for example, a bank statement, then I have to tell it that look for the number against balance in order to figure something out.
Mhm.
But now I don't have to kind of do all of that. It automatically understands it. Oh, it's a shopping receipt. So that's where I have to go. Oh, it's a bank statement. That's where I have to go. So those are the changes, and those are the, the speed at which innovation is happening today. Um, that is completely changing the way we look at how, for example, documents are processed.
Mhm. And so, once again, bringing in the automation factor of things. Lots of people are afraid, I don't know if it's a rational fear, that AI is going to take my job. I'm going to be left poor on the side of the road because I won't have anything to do. So, where do you think the balance is between integrating human involvement and AI involvement into a business, and how do you do that personally with Clik.ai?
Let me tell you what I think would be the changes in the next short, medium, and long term,
Mm-hmm.
the way things are done. In the short term, the very first changes or disruption that will come is more to do with knowledge work. For example, legal documents, um, you know, uh, financial statements, you know, writing articles. Those are the things that AI would be able to create quickly. And those are the first level of disruptions that will come in the short term. The medium term, it is definitely going to be um, more in terms of disrupting industries. For example, I don't think your kids would ever need to learn how to drive a car. There would be, no need. There will be, self-driving cars, for example. Um, Healthcare, for example, will never be about cure. It'll become about prevention because the AI will have an ability to read complex images and data from MRIs to X-rays to even doing, genome, understanding, DNAs better in order to figure out, uh, what could be the risk for individual patients and then prevent it and how can we prevented it. Again, from a healthcare example, the other thing that I could do is, the customized medication for patients or early diagnosis or a rapid diagnosis. Those are the things that will absolutely come. That's a good thing. Education, for example, I certainly feel that the learning pattern or capabilities of each individual is different. However, our systems today, the entire education system today, is very cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Like, you you either take a commerce or a science or an arts, and then you basically study a certain select subjects, and
Mm-hmm.
you basically they want you to follow a pattern.
Yeah.
While education in the future is absolutely going to be adaptive, it is absolutely going to be personalized to
Mm-hmm.
each individual based on what they want to do, what their interests are, and those kind of things. So with AI,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a possibility. Your shopping choices, for example, that's going to be very personalized because it'll know your history of what you have bought, what you like, what colors do you like, everything. So imagine there's a um, personal assistant going with you and shopping for exactly what you need. So those are the definite things that will happen. In terms of risk, it happens like, it's everywhere. It could be the fact that, um, for example, you must have seen some of those recent ones, deep fakes,
Yeah.
those kind of things coming in. Those are the real threats. Imagine just a day before elections, a politician's deep fake comes where he's admitting to some illegal activities or something. That by the time you do the correction, it'll be too late,
Mm.
right? So those are real threats. There's definitely going to be some ethics, governance, regulations around it,
Mm.
and that is needed too.
Mm. Yeah. And for example, you gave the example of medical practice. I think there still has to be at any given point some sort of human interaction there. For example, you talked about preventative healthcare, but every so often that doesn't work out. And for example, you're diagnosing a patient with cancer. AI doing that might be a bit cold, you know. So I think in some instances, human involvement will always be there to some extent. So I don't think everyone's going to lose their jobs. I think the bottom 10-20% may actually, you know, end up losing their jobs because they can easily be replaced with AI. But I think the top performers in every industry will always continue to strive even with AI.
Absolutely. Um, AI cannot, at least for now, replace empathy.
Mm.
So human empathy is the most important element of any industry, and that will remain. At the same time, can we fully rely on the AI? Maybe not.
Mm.
You would always need some sort of a human um, layer to kind of do the final checks and
Mm-hmm.
balances before, imagine a wrong diagnosis, the patient can die, right? So um, there, I believe that at least for now, we um, haven't created any systems that can replace human behavior in terms of empathy, taking the right decisions, and that should remain.
I mean, it's all great until AI is fact checking AI, and then that AI is also being fact checked. I mean, that's probably the
Yeah,
future at some point. But
yeah.
yeah, and that's interesting. So, continuing from the topic of AI that we had earlier discussed and how it might take jobs, on the contrary, how do you think us as young people and generally people can take advantage of AI and convert it into startups or business opportunities?
You have to look at problems around you. It could be as simple as, um, how to make pizza not soggy when you put it in the microwave, to a complicated problem like, um, can I read the medical reports that I see on a regular basis better? And how can I do it? AI is definitely going to help you there. Consider, let's say, OpenAI or ChatGPT as one of your co-founders. It can help you, sort of guide you in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then again, it is about what you're most passionate about. Because what ends up happening is, typically, when you know your why is better, uh, you would be able to sail through your failures and be able to come up with something that can help you sail through those kind of times
Mm-hmm.
and still continue on your path to create the solution that you wanted.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And again, I think earlier we spoke about ethics and AI. How does, having AI startups and businesses, what ethical kind of if effects is the wrong word, but what ethical, connotations might it have on business as a whole?
Yeah. Um, I think there are three, four things that everyone looks at. Was one of that is bias reduction. How do you make sure that the you know whatever you are um, trying to create does not have a bias? So having diverse set of data is important. If you try to, because it's ultimately about the set of data that you're feeding your AI, right? If you try to feed the data which is very biased in one way, then your solutions are not going to be perfect. So bias reduction is very important in terms of diversifying the set of data that you're providing, having a robust security around the data so that it is not hacked. That's another thing that is extremely important. Follow the rules, compliance, being honest with your customer as to how you have approached a particular problem. That definitely builds trust. So those are the couple of things that you should do.
Hmm. That makes sense. And you know, further moving zooming in, since you're in the real estate sector of
Yeah.
AI, how are ethics? How do ethics and AI affect real estate specifically? Is there anything different in that regard?
Ethics and AI in real estate. Yeah. So, for example, um, if you look at how AI is changing real estate in general, a lot of prediction is happening. For example, earlier you wouldn't know what are the comparables in when you're leasing a particular place, when a sale happens, right? All those comparables are now more readily available and faster to make informed decisions. Um, Again, as I said, because of the new technologies and document parsing, uh, things have become more faster. Majority of the people are able to reach out to their end customers faster. The entire cycle has shortened.
Mhm.
So those, I would say, are the top two or three things that I see in a day-to-day world from a real estate perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. And now, further, just bringing everything together. Um, your entrepreneurial journey has been over 20 years. First startup in 2000, and now Clik.ai, and I think a
Yeah.
few in between. How have you developed as a person, along with as an entrepreneur, through these 20, 25 years?
So obviously, I have not been on entrepreneur
Sure.
throughout my
Yeah.
25 years. I've worked with large corporations. I've worked, as an entrepreneur as well. So my experience has been mixed. I have learned my lessons when I was in corporates. How to deal with large, operations, processes, etc. At the same time, entrepreneurship actually teaches you to be nimble and be adaptive, be fast, predict the changes and adapt according to that. So combined with these two things, I think I am better placed than anybody who is one way or the other. And I think that um, I have evolved as a person. When it comes to taking the decisions in terms of how fast we should grow, or for example, what are the risks that the business should take. Uh, Having a framework in mind, having that kind of an experience definitely helps.
And as a personal question, corporate or entrepreneurship?
Any day entrepreneurship.
Why?
Um, Flexibility, ability to bring the change and controlling that change. Corporates, even if you think there is a change that is required, there's layers and layers of approval that is needed to bring about the change. Startup is not like that. You could walk into a podcast and half the wardrobe. So yes, the flexibility, the ability you can bring a change, um, and in general, it's you feel more young.
Mm. And I mean, you said all the positives of entrepreneurship, but
Yeah.
now you know the corporate and the entrepreneur side of things.
Yeah.
What's the dark side of entrepreneurship? What's the side that people don't talk about? You know, there's always freedom, there's always wealth. What's the side that's not covered?
Majority of the people live in the shadows of a unicorn. So everyone looks at the Oyos, the Paytms, the Ubers and Olas of the world. But 90% of the um, startups are not like that. They slog harder. Growth may or may not be as fast as you predict. Um, and things might change, abruptly. For example, there could be a compliance that a government agency will bring that you would have to adhere to, and then you have to change the entire business model. Would you be able to bring the change? That all depends on the fact how passionate you are about what you wanted to do at the beginning, and if that's there, you would figure out a way. So to all the entrepreneurs who are there, I think only a select few of them will be able to be the unicorns that everyone looks at. Majority of them will fail, and some will survive. But then the real meat in the journey is about what you learned and what change you could bring than the money that you have made.
I agree. I completely agree. And another, I believe, a misconception I've heard from other people I've interviewed and other entrepreneurs I've generally spoke to is that it's going to be easy from the start, from the get-go. It's always going to be easy. So, I mean, that brings in the, I believe, Dunning Kruger effect. There's the valley of despair at the beginning, always. And you've definitely faced that. I'm sure you have. How does one stick through that valley of despair to see the sunshine at the end of the tunnel?
It's a roller coaster ride. I mean, there would be ups, there'll be downs. Knowing why you started is very important. If you're doing entrepreneurship just because you'll be able to make a lot of money, eventually it's not going to be, the right reason for you to do it. But if you have found the moat, if you have found what makes you unique, the chances are that you will be moderately or super successful.
Mm.
Um, Again, as I said, there are a lot of failure points. It's like riding a bicycle, juggling three balls, and at the same time, it's just a bicycle with one wheel.
Mhm.
Um, so anything anything could go wrong.
Mm.
But at the same time, you should be ready to get up, uh, fix what you're doing, and then kind of go from there. It's like it's often said that entrepreneurship is like jumping off a cliff and then building an aeroplane while you are kind of before you hit the ground.
Mhm.
But sometimes you just don't have a screwdriver.
Oh,
Just have to do it some other way.
Mhm.
So just be passionate about, and that's why I again and again say that finding something within your passion, it'll be easier uh, for your drive. If you're just doing it for money, then rather not do it.
Mm.
There's a lot of money to be made in corporates as well. Stick to that.
Mm. I know you've given a bunch of pieces of advice, including this, but just to close off, one final piece of advice that has helped you through your entrepreneurial journey, start to finish, what would that be to the viewers?
Um, it's very difficult, but trying to balance entrepreneurship with your your general life, like
Mhm.
that's very important. You get you tend to get so busy that you would fall off with your friends, with your family. You're spending so much of time, just focusing on building the business, that you um, fail to find your personal time. That could be very stressful. Eventually, it gets onto you. So even when you're kind of working very hard to build the business, find time for your own self and de-stress. That's the most important thing that I would say.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Where should people keep up with your work? At Clik.ai or generally with your life? Where do you want people to,
Yeah,
keep in
connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help out the new entrepreneurs with
touch?
whatever I know from my journey. Whatever I could help, I'm happy to.
It's perfect. Great
Thank
to
you
have
so
you on
much.
the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr.
Sure.
Prerit Gautam.